Hello and welcome to my channel. Welcome to the last episode of Does Anyone Still Care About This? A little series that I do here on YouTube where I discuss events in pop culture that may have passed their expiration date as far as if people still want to discuss them. So normally it's like 2 weeks, maybe 3 at the most. But with the way that people talk about things and the way the news cycle kind of cycles through, a lot of times by the time I'm ready to talk about something, that window is kind of past. So I called it Does Anyone Still Care About This? And over the course of me doing these little episodes, you guys have shown me that yes, sometimes you do still care about it. And sometimes you really do not. But I want to thank you for watching. If you've watched them all, it's been nice and fun, and I think important for me to be able to cycle through certain events. I still do my old little show like this that I used to do, Very Necessary. I do it over on Patreon, and going into the next year, I have discovered that my patrons are actually the perfect co-hosts. So I'm gonna do a show that kind of like involves all of them because we have fun sort of discussing like pop culture and current event things. But that being said, let's get to the subject of today's video. First of all, I have to point out the fact that during like the holiday season before Christmas, I was all like holly jolly, wanted to like wear a Christmas sweater, blah, blah, blah. I still have my tree up. Well, one of my trees. I have 3 Christmas trees this year, like some sort of wealthy suburban housewife. But anyway, now I'm giving like full Morticia Adams. This is an accident, but this is actually like my most comfortable state. I'm super comfortable in like an all black situation. I like color, but I like this. I like how serious it is, Let's get to today's first topic, which is the trial of Megan Thee Stallion. So I want to give major props to anybody who does YouTube content who filmed a reaction or a video about this when the news first came out that Tory Lanez would indeed be going to jail for assaulting her with a firearm, for shooting her in the foot back, I think it was in the summer of 2021. If I'm wrong, I will post the date here. I don't follow the event to a T. I just remember when it happened, being so overwhelmed by the juxtaposition of what was happening in Megan's career with this act of violence against her. I also remember just kind of feeling like it was the perfect metaphor for a lot of times what Black women go through in life in general. You could be literally taking all kinds of pain, all kinds of assault to your body, to your mental health, to your emotions. At the same time, you're trying to figure out how to protect people that are next to you. A perfect example of that is how Megan was like, I don't want to report Tory. I don't want to tell the cops what really happened because I know he's a Black man and they may not be easy on him. But at the same time, you have to deal with, assaults from your community. You have to deal with assaults from the person you're trying to protect. And then at the end of the day, you still have to get out there and be a bad bitch. You know what I'm saying? Like it's overwhelming. And when I saw that happen to her, I think it was the video of her tiptoeing across the street and something had happened to her foot. And, she's got this beautiful body. She is the stallion. And seeing her like crippled over like that, it was jarring for me. And so even though I haven't kept up with all of the details of this, I definitely followed this case, and I was just waiting for justice to be done. What surprised me though was the tone that talking about this case took on social media. I was first surprised by the way that a lot of Black people, both Black men and women, were discussing the issue online. I think we know and we understand what misogyny is, and we know and we understand what misogynoir is, but watching it be so blatantly displayed while this case was happening and while these things were going on, I was flabbergasted. I did not understand. I did not understand why people had the audacity to come forward and say anything negative about Megan when she wasn't the one on trial, when it was proven by evidence that Tory provided himself via the text messages that he willingly sent asking her not to say anything. I don't understand why anybody felt the need to take it out on Megan when she wasn't the one who was guilty of a crime. And of course, some people did say that she was guilty of a crime because initially when cops asked her about what happened in the situation, Megan said that, oh, well, we just got into a fight. And then cops asked her about her sexual relationship to Tory. And she said she didn't have one. And a lot of people took that as serious as a crime of shooting someone in the foot. And, once again, we know what misogyny is, right? We know that a lot of times women are expected to be these worldly, wonderful lovers, especially Black women, the history that we have of being hypersexualized and dehumanized when it comes to our bodies and the way that they're used for sexual gratification only, especially the way that that sexual gratification is kind of pimped out by the media. And then at the same time, we know that when it comes to the private life and how we really like for people to seem, we know that our ideals and our morals tend to get a lot more puritanical. It didn't surprise me at all that Megan went under the spotlight of the police. She was already in protective mode. Why would she not protect herself? Why would she not say, no, we never had a sexual relationship? It is so damning sometimes to admit, especially as a Black woman, that yes, I am a sexual person. I have sex partners. I have sex. Like, it's a part of my life. And it's so crazy to me that that weird, dissonance, that weird dichotomy of dissonance, that cognitive dissonance that is created. So because of that heaviness that I know exists, I then could not understand why people were acting so ignorant. Of course she lied about that. Of course she lied about their sexual history. Why would she feel comfortable in that situation? Especially when she's a celebrity. And so she stands an even bigger chance of having her name and her reputation just dragged through the mud. But a lot of people took that lie about her and they ran with it and they said she can't be trusted, even though, again, you had evidence of him saying that he did it. You had pictures of her feet from the hospital. You had the doctor say, I took out bullet fragments. But people said, no, she lied about them having sex, so she lied about that too. I think what really broke my heart in all of this was, once again, the misogynoir. Seeing so many prevalent and popular Black male pundits and Black male spokespeople and Black media personalities come out and attack this woman as if, once again, she was the one who did something wrong. And I think the thing that she did wrong was the only thing I can point to is to try and get inside of these men's head as to why they decided to speak out against her and to say the defamatory things against her that they did say. People talk about the code of silence and certain government factions. And I think when it comes to hip hop and the culture that it represents, which can sometimes be a very violent culture where you do have things occur that people expect you to be quiet about. We respected Lil' Kim, or I guess hip hop respected Lil' Kim for going to jail behind, certain things that may or may not have been done that she may have witnessed. She did not snitch. I think snitching is a bigger crime to a lot of people than assault. And so because Megan was seen to have been snitching, I guess, people said, okay, well, she's the bigger villain here. And I don't agree with that frame of thinking at all, but that's the only thing I can find that would possibly explain why the vitriol was painted towards Megan. I also think that the way men responded to her ties back to an age-old kind of frat boy adage that I heard at a very, very young age, which is bros over hoes. They're going to 100% have the back of a man in a situation versus having the back of a woman, even if she is a victim. Which is why I think so many women are hesitant to speak up about things sometimes, especially when they feel like they're not surrounded by groups of people that would understand them. The music industry is a notoriously male-dominated industry. The rap industry is male-dominated. And, I think about the perception of artists from the side of the men within that industry when it came to, I already talked about Lil' Kim, but when it comes to situations where they could have snitched, right? You think about somebody like Nicki Minaj, who's had several men close to her involved in a lot of high-profile crime situations. But Nicki doesn't snitch, so she is respected. And what's interesting to me about that, even though I'm kind of using that as maybe as some reasoning for why they treated Megan the way that they did, I think about the fact that it wasn't Megan's choice to snitch, to tell on Tory, to even bring this forward. She wanted to bury it and move on with her life. It was the people that treated her. It was the law enforcement at the time. They said, hey, you were a victim of a crime here. We need to press charges. And they pressed charges against him for her. They pressed the charges. And so I think that that's a very important thing to keep in mind. And I definitely would keep it in mind if I was somebody who was like, she snitched, she told, so she must be lying. And I think about just how things played out. Did she really have a choice but to come forward? Were a lot of choices made for her? Thank God. But these men are not worried about that because in their worlds in general, you can just look at the way, I don't think any of the men that spoke out about Megan, I don't think any of them have a decent relationship with a woman amongst them. Thinking about Joe Budden, 50 Cent, Drake, None of them you look at and you're like, oh yeah, you're in a positive relationship with a woman. None of them. All of them have had issues of domestic violence, verbal abuse, just being straight up womanizers. None of them, it would appear, see women as real people. And so it doesn't really surprise me that they had the attitudes that they had towards Meg. The only way I can justify it is maybe the whole idea of snitching and how poorly it is looked upon in the hip hop community, because a lot of times the hip hop community is tied to certain nefarious dealings that people would like to keep quiet. And the other way that I look at that is they're going to always protect a man over protecting a woman. It doesn't make any of it right, but it was all very interesting to witness. The other thing that was interesting to witness were the women that came out against Megan. I am the opposite of bros over hoes. I am hoes over bros, okay? I 100%, it doesn't matter what a woman did. I'm gonna be like, she right. She's innocent. She's right. And what surprised me was that so many women don't think that way. And it really surprised me that there were so many Black women. And when I say surprised me, I'm being 100% facetious. Actually, it did not surprise me. I was surprised initially, I think. And then I was like, oh, okay, how surprising. Because I think in general, Black women have an issue with respectability politics. And this was something that was brought up over and over again over on TikTok. There is a creator, I'm not going to say her name or anything, in case anybody who watches this is not on TikTok, you don't need to know. But just know that she's a creator who had grown an audience by, I'm going to say she talked about pop culture, but when she talked about it, she had a general tone to her. And I found her tone to be really alienating and demeaning. And so I didn't like her content. I actually blocked her because she kept coming up on my algorithm a lot, because the algorithm was like, hey, you're Black, she's Black, want to see this? So I ended up blocking her. But her tone was that church mother tone, that Black mama tone, and whatever she talked about, she would come at you in that tone. And I think that for Black people, for Black audiences, that tone is ingrained in our DNA. And it depends on who it's coming from. We can read it very positively or we can read it very negatively. So for example, when I was a teacher, I remember I would have coworkers that weren't Black and they would be working with children who were acting a certain way in their classes. And they'd be like, I talked to him and I came to him and I was like, is this how we treat our friends? And, I tried to tell him that, he knows he's better than this. And, he knows I believe in him. And I was like, He will understand that coming from you if you tell it to him a certain way. So for example, you could not say, hey, this is not how we treat our friends. This is not right. You know better than this. You got to come at that little boy like, excuse me? Is that what we do? Because I don't think that's, you come at them once or twice like that. And a lot of kids will read that as, that's how they talk to me at home. Okay. And then afterwards, you start giving them compliments. I really like how you're sitting in that seat. Does everybody see this? This is what I'm talking about. And that same kid is like, but it's that tone. It's a cultural tone. And I hear it all the time. I see different media personalities use it, especially when they're talking about anything that has to do with pop culture, Black men, Black women. They will take that tone. And a lot of times it gets them an audience because we hear that and we're like, oh, okay, what's this person saying? I recognize that. We recognize it coming from the church mothers, from our grandmothers, from our moms. The problem though is that when it starts to feel belittling, and that's 100% how I felt when I first even looked at her content and I said, this isn't for me, I don't like this. And so I blocked her. Well, when the Megan Thee Stallion trial was when people were talking about it a lot, she made a video talking about Megan's outfit that she wore to court. And basically what she said was, you know better than this, in that tone. Megan needs to know better than this. How is anybody going to be on her side when she's dressed like this? She got her breasts out. She went in on Megan's outfit and how bad it made Megan look. And here's the thing. The kicker is that a lot of times, all I know of law and the criminal justice system is watching Dateline, right? But a lot of times they will tell, or 2020 or whatever, crime documentaries, blah, blah, blah. But they will tell the person, they'll say, hey, you need to dress differently when you go to court. I remember watching the Anna Delvey documentary or the docuseries or whatever that was on Netflix earlier this year. And what Anna wore was a huge part of her experience in court. There's a whole episode about getting her the right dress because you need the right outfit and to appeal the correct way to the jury so that they're more likely to believe your side. And so what she was saying wasn't 100% incorrect, but where she got caught up was two things. The first thing, Megan wasn't on trial. Megan was a witness in a trial, but she was not on trial. The next thing is that as a Black woman, we thrive more when we're on each other's side versus when we're tearing each other down and belittling and demeaning each other. I say it time and time again on this channel, you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. I know I'm vinegar, okay? I know one of the reasons that it's tougher for me to do what I want to do is because I'm vinegary, all right? With all my sad little stories and whatever else, okay? But you catch more flies with honey. So if you wanted to talk about her wardrobe, you can't deliver it in that tone. And a lot of people, that's just how they talk. That's just what they say. That's just whatever. But I was really turned off by that. And it kept showing up on my timeline because a lot of people kept saying, hey, I'm turned off by this. I normally like what she says, but I don't like this. And I think that comes from a place too of a lot of Black women understanding that there have been times when we've held each other to a certain standard that other people would not hold us to. That we won't give each other a break when other people might have given us a break. And most importantly, this was a time to support Megan and to show that, hey, it doesn't matter if you went in there in a potato sack with one out. You're innocent. You were attacked. That's what this is about. So I think that anybody who was on social media that wasn't getting that, I think they got what was coming to them, and they definitely got criticized right back for whatever they were saying about Megan. The next thing that I thought was interesting about this trial was the way that Tory Lanez's family reacted when he was found guilty. It's not always easy to get a guilty verdict. You have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this thing happened. I think one of the cases that I'm still overwhelmingly confused by is the Casey Anthony case. I do not know how she got off innocent with that. And then they had the nerve to come out with that documentary on Peak. Like, what are we doing? But anyway, I have seen enough cases through my crime TV watching to recognize the fact that just because you go to court, it doesn't mean that you're gonna get a guilty verdict. So there had to be evidence, there had to be proof that he did this. Even with Megan's friend who was with her at the time, Kelsey, who, by the way, I wouldn't show my face in public. What a terrible, terrible, terrible friend she turned out to be. I have people in this life that I have loved deeply, and we've chosen to walk away from each other. And we have witnessed some stuff has gone down. And to this day, if somebody came at me about that person and tried to talk about that situation with me and defame them or misrepresent the events that occurred, I'm sticking up for them. They were my friend when that happened. I'm sticking up for them. And whenever news was coming up about her and how she was acting in that courtroom, it was, is this real life? This girl asking if she can plead amendments that have nothing to do with this situation to get out of having to snitch. God, that snitching thing is huge. But anyway, what a terrible friend. And I truly hope that everything she tries to do as far as like social media, all that stuff, I hope people are able to see her character that work with her. And that's all I'll say about that. Moving on. Tory Lanez's family and the way that they reacted to the verdict being read. Like I said, it's not always easy to get a guilty verdict at all, beyond reasonable doubt. Even when you can, it's like, man, this person did this. If you can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, you can't get a guilty verdict. And so they were able to do that in this case. The jury was convinced, even with Megan's inappropriate court wear, even with Tory doing what he needed to do to appear to be an upstanding witness, covering up his bald spots, wearing suits, bringing his child to court, all of that. They still said, nah, dude, you did it. You're going to jail for up to 20 years and you're facing deportation. The way his family acted and has continued to act after that verdict was read, I was overwhelmed. The first thing is the father screaming about God and God's protection and what God was going to do because they did this to his son. I don't think a lot of people have the same definition of God. I think they think of God as like an ATM, and God just is supposed to give them grace and give them glory and mercy and protection and curse all of their enemies. We saw this with Danae Jackson a few weeks ago. Because you're in a bind, and anybody who speaks against you, they must know that God exists only to serve you, and how dare them come near you. I don't think people understand that that's never how it's worked. If you believe in a Christian God, at least. I think any system of religion, that's not how it works. God is independent of you. And usually the worst, the things that we do that are bad, the things that we do that go against his agenda are not going to land us in a good place. And if Tory's father would but look at his son's track record of violence and terrible behavior, there's no confusion as to why God may not have shown up and helped him out this time. It revealed to me that, sometimes the apple does not fall very far from the tree. You clearly had a lot of people here who were very, very egotistical, very inept when it came to admitting their own wrongdoing. Tory reminded me in this situation of those kids that you work with whose parents never think they do anything wrong. I hated those kids when I was teaching. I hated it. When I was growing up, if a teacher had to call home, my mom's first question was, "What did you do?" First question. And then if I explained it to her and it really sounded like you might want to go check on that teacher, she would. And she did. But I got it. Let me look at the situation honestly and openly, even though I'm your parent. And I just think it's wild that they couldn't do that. And then they not only told everybody to watch out for the God that apparently only serves them. What about the God that looks out for and loves Megan? No, that person doesn't exist, or that being doesn't exist. Okay. But they told everybody to watch out for God. And then they blamed everything on Jay-Z. I was so confused. Let's wrap up this little section of the video. The last thing I want to say is I hope Megan is still able to have her career. I have thoroughly enjoyed this era of hottiness, okay? The effect that she's had on social media, the music that she's come up with, the way that she saved summer 2020 with Savage, the way that she came back summer 2021. Megan Thee Stallion has, in her short time in the spotlight, contributed so much, way more than Tory Lanez, which is another question I had. I was like, why are all these hip hop heavyweights, why are they speaking against the person who's carrying the weight, who's bringing the money in, they're talking about, they're trying to protect the wrong person. But again, it goes down to misogyny, bros over hoes, the whole snitch code. There's lots of reasons for why they were functioning incorrectly in this situation. But Megan has done so much, and I hope she's able to continue to do it. I hope she wants to do it. What's so funny to me is people talk about mental health. And Megan was open about the fact that this situation embarrassed her. She didn't even want to live while going through this. You have to remember, she just lost her mom not that long ago. She loses this girl that's supposed to be her good friend who's trash. And she comes out and she's saying, this was really hard on me. This is hard on me. And the same people that are going to be like, oh, we could have done more. Oh, why didn't we protect her if she was to do something to herself? Are the same people that are writing these terrible things, saying these terrible things with no remorse and no recoil. And it's just disgusting. And I hope that she's still able to have a career, because here's the thing. Those are the people that I feel like those people, the Joe Buttons, the 50 Cents, the Drakes, the whomever else, they're just the figureheads. They're tied to producers. They're tied to A&R people. The music industry is a tight web, and it operates off of relationships. Who do you know? Who's still willing to work with you? Who's still willing to produce your stuff? I think that's the entertainment industry in general. That's a lot of reason why people don't always speak out, why the Me Too movement was so delayed. These women were afraid. If I say something to this guy, how will it affect my casting here? How will it affect this? How will it affect that? And it's a domino effect sometimes when you speak out. And so I hope that there are still people within the music industry that have integrity. I would actually love to see Drake issue an apology, Joe Budden issue an apology, 50 Cent, all of these people. I want an apology to Megan. And I know they weren't the only ones, but they're the only ones I can think of right now. But I want an apology, and I want an insurance on their behalf that they will be professional, that she will be allowed to still pursue, because she was great. She is great. And I just hope that this case and the way that this is all wrapped up does not represent the end of the hottie era. I'd love to see her continue. I want to see her continue to do great things. And I hope that those same doors are still open for her to do so. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is a podcast that recently aired here on YouTube. It is hosted by Angie Martinez, who I didn't grow up in New York, but I grew up with like Hot 97 and all the DJs. But I specifically grew up listening to Ladies Night. It is a song that came out in 1997. I remember I was really feeling myself, 7th grade going to 8th grade. Ladies Night came out, and my favorite like part of that song is anyway. I love that. I've always known who she was just because of that. I think that song was one of the first rap songs I memorized like all the way through, knew everybody's part. And so she has a podcast now. And recently Kim Kardashian was a guest on her podcast. And everybody's picking up on the fact that Kim talked about co-parenting with Kanye. And for the first time, kind of let her really solid, like, outward veneer break. Kim has just been very calm and collected through the whole thing. And if you don't feel like she has a reason to keep calm and collected because you're one of those people who's like, Kanye's a genius, he's done nothing wrong, check into your local hospital and have a full brain scan done. Because I don't care if you feel like he's a genius because you think he's exposing things that needs to be exposed. That's not the way to go about it, in my opinion. Right? Because people are no longer listening to you, and now you're kind of a laughing stock. But there's a way to do things. And people could say, well, sometimes you have to blow things up from the inside out. Maybe. But the issue here is not who he's talking about always in the industry. The issue is how he attacks the mother of his kids, a woman that he chased for years, a family that he chased for years to try and belong to. A lot of people insult the Kardashians when it comes to their relationship with these men that they've been with. They suck the life out of them. They're the curse of that. These men chase them actively. And then they get into their families and they mistreat them, violently mistreat them. I do not envy any woman in the Kardashian family with any of the men who have weaseled their way in there, especially not Kim, especially not. I think about the fact that she has 4 kids with him. North, who I had to block North on TikTok, y'all. I couldn't take it no more. At first I was like, oh, this is cute. She's so fun. And then it kept happening. And her face is always so close to the camera. And I just couldn't take it no more. I could. Northwest was posting no fewer than 50 TikToks an hour. It was so much. So I couldn't take it. But, she's got North, who's like Kanye reincarnated, right? She's got Saint. And then she went through hell to have Saint. I still remember the term placenta acreata because of what she went through with Saint to get him here. And then we have the 2 babies that her and Kanye teamed up together and got surrogates in order to get. Surrogates are not cheap. A surrogate birth is very expensive. She's got 2. 4 kids total. They bought all this property together. I mean, they were really trying to set up this life, and then Kanye defected and deflected. And rightfully so. Deal with what you have going on, whatever. But it's got to hurt to lose that. And then on top of that, the way that he then turned around and talked about her. The way that he talks about her family. The way that he, and I don't want to get too much into it because I know there's so many people out there who think that he's justified because they hate Kim Kardashian. I don't think he's justified at all. And I don't think he's justified for the very reason that she said why she doesn't badmouth him. These children, these kids, it's not just them going against each other. It's these kids hearing about their mother a certain way. These kids seeing what their father is doing. He chose not to protect his family when he chose to speak ill of her in public, when he chose to give away where his children go to school. Like he kept talking about, oh, I'm the protector, I'm doing right. What did he say? This is love speech. But then he trashes his kid's mom and he threatens their security. I mean, I don't know. I know there's people that are still like super fans of his that are going to defend everything he did. And I'm not one of them. I love Graduation too, y'all. But enough is enough. Anyway, so Kim gets on this podcast and she finally talks about how hard it is to co-parent with Kanye. And there's a part that people are passing around where her voice kind of breaks and she starts crying a little bit. And I love that she got to talk to Angie Martinez because I feel like Angie is, well, she's a huge part of hip hop culture. But I feel like Kim was allowed a certain amount of vulnerability in front of Angie that she wouldn't be allowed if she was speaking to someone else. You know what I'm saying? I feel like it was important that Angie was a woman that was speaking to her. And the other thing I think is interesting is the audience reception to what she had to say. I read in a lot of comment sections where people were like, oh, this is what we want to see. We hate when you guys get on the Kardashians and act like everything is rainbow and butterflies. We want to see you like this, crying. And that was so funny to me because I'm like, what show are y'all watching? Somebody is always crying on that freaking show. I personally don't watch it. I think I tried to watch the new season of the Kardashians because I was at home one day and I was like, whatever, it looks cute. And I could not take what was going on with Khloe. I just, that was too far for me. I did not want to see that. Also, I can't watch Kourtney and Travis. Get somebody else to do it. I cannot watch that. But I will say this, that family, they do be going through it and they put it on the show. I'm trying to figure out like, what show are these people watching? Kim is literally popular. One of the most popular things about her is her cry face. She be crying all the time on TV. And what I took away from that, what people were saying, oh, we like you like this. We like you vulnerable. This is what we like. What I took away from that is people change what they like all the time. So if you're creating content, you're putting anything out there, just do what is true to you in that moment. And that's for anybody, even if you're not a Kardashian listening to this. But I have learned that when you release something to the world and you're like, this is my truth, you're also releasing like permission slips for people to take what you are giving them, form their own opinions, whether they're right, wrong, way out of line, whatever, and decide who you are based on sometimes nothing that it doesn't even have anything to do with you. Now, I'm not saying that that's the Kardashians totally. I do think that they have a little bit more, they have a little bit more input in what they release and put out. I mean, Kris Jenner is involved and she do be controlling things. But I found it interesting that people were like, okay, now we like you because we see you cry in this situation when she's been crying. And she's been trying to take the higher road. And she's been trying not to, talk about this to protect her kids. And she said as much. So I think it's just, to me, that response was really interesting. But I will say, though, that I felt badly for her watching this. Like, obviously not too bad. She's still a multimillionaire. But, yeah, co-parenting with him, I could imagine would be really rough. And I wouldn't wish it on anyone. And I used to hate the fact that Kanye did not marry a black woman. I think he was dating Alexis Pfeiffer, and then he moved on to Amber Rose, who he was horrible to. And some people could say that, like, Kim brought this on herself because, if he treated one person like this, he gonna treat you like this too, But I used to hate that he didn't marry a black woman, but I would not wish that on any of us. I would not wish Kanye on any woman, honestly. So I hope that they're able to pull it together for the kids, and I'm really interested to see the type of person that North grows into because, woo! Because if her TikToks are any indication, it's gonna be a time. We're all collectively going to have a time. All right, guys, that is all. That is all I have to say about these two subjects, and that is the very last Does Anyone Still Care About This for 2022. As always, thank you for watching.